Hi guys, Tom Mills here. Everybody's been asking what exactly happened when Andrea got sick and the details, and so I thought it'd be a good idea if I started telling that now before I forget everything that happened. So it probably goes back 3 months before everything happened, and she started feeling kind of weak and maybe like she was going to pass out, and so we took her in. She had been having some constipation issues. Well, we took her in. She wanted to go to the emergency room, which was always a surprise because, as you guys know, Andrea wouldn't go to the emergency room unless she really thought she should. So we took her in there, and they checked her out. They did some blood work, and she was there for a couple hours, and they just decided she was slightly anemic, and so they just figured she was weak. At the time, she was talking about how she was feeling with one of her homeschool friends who was over, and Andrea was always really squeamish. So if you talked about blood or something kind of gross, it wouldn't be just, she'd be a little grossed out. She'd be like super grossed out. And so she was discussing all the things that she thought, you know, her constipation issues could possibly be, and she was getting freaked out. And I think that's why she was really kind of feeling weak and going to pass out. So we brought her in, and she's also got what they call white coat syndrome really bad. So she's had a lot of, you guys know on our channel, she's had experiences with doctors that were less than pleasant, and so she got nervous around doctors, and her blood pressure always went up. That's been since I've known her. And so we went in there, and I took her blood pressure, of course, and it was really high, and they were really obsessed with the high blood pressure. And so but they said, we told them that she's got this white coat syndrome, and so they gave her, we rested there for a little while. They were going to give her some blood pressure meds, but her blood pressure started coming down on her own after she'd been there a while. And so they just wrote it off as anemia, and we went home. And I don't know, maybe a month later, she had kind of the same thing. She was feeling dizzy, and she was having some abdominal pain that she was certain was from the constipation she thought she had. And so we went in, same thing. And again, they were really upset about the blood pressure. They took more blood work and all that sort of a thing. And one of the doctors there was really kind of a jerk, said, "You better control your blood pressure or you're going to die." And she kind of it upset me. I was really mad at the guy. But anyways, it was about the same thing. So they gave her a prescription for some, I think it was labetalol, and for blood pressure stuff. We still have it. We never even used it. But so it was the same thing. The blood pressure. We took some blood work again. They said her liver enzymes were a little elevated, but they were nothing to be concerned about. And there was most of the blood pressure they wanted to be concerned with, and all that. So then about you know, I don't know, a few weeks after that, 2 or 3 weeks after that, she started to be in a lot of pain, and she was really weak, and she was pretty much in bed for pretty much a month. She would get up and, you know, make meals and stuff, and, you know, use the restroom, but she must have just wanted to just lay in bed. She was very tired, and her stomach hurt a lot, and after about, you know, a month of that, I was getting kind of concerned, and so I said we should take you to the doctor and get you looked at. We didn't want to go to the emergency room or nothing, so we just went to the urgent care. So we went to the urgent care, and they you know, took her vitals and all that sort of a thing, and of course her blood pressure was through the roof again. And so they did some more tests, and I can't remember why they did it, but they transferred us to the ER at one point. Maybe it's because they didn't have a doctor that could see her or something. I can't remember, but we were at the urgent care, and they transferred us to the ER. And so we were there all for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 hours while they were running blood work, and we were waiting to talk to doctors and stuff, and they couldn't really figure out what was going on with her abdominal pain. But something on the blood work uh, made them think that that was her. I don't have to remember how they decided it was her gallbladder, but something with the blood work. Maybe she went in and had an MRI. She was pregnant at the time, obviously, and so they were limited on what they could do. And I wish I could remember. Let me think a minute here. Well, I can't remember. I think it was something with the blood work that made him realize, oh, it's her gallbladder. And she did, 10 years ago, she had some gallstones that she was passing for every few weeks for almost a year, I think. It was painful for her. But they went away, and that was the end of it. But so anyways, they decided it was her gallbladder. And so they needed to schedule surgery right then to get her gallbladder out. So brought an anesthesiologist and all that, and she went into, it was going to be the next morning, I think, first thing in the morning. So I stayed the night there, and in the morning they brought her in and did the gallbladder surgery, and we were just waiting on pins and needles, and the guy came out and said, gallbladder came out, everything's okay there, but we saw her liver, and it looked, it was bumpy. And so he showed us some pictures, and I guess the liver is supposed to be really smooth. And so there was scarring on the liver, and he says, this is some stage of cirrhosis of the liver of something. And he wasn't really experienced with it. He was a surgeon, so they recommended we go to one of the 2 or 3 places, and the best place they said was this Presbyterian St. Luke's in Denver. And so he said, well, I guess we'll go there. And so they put her on a plane, and actually, no, we went into an ambulance. They were going to drive us there. And so we got on the ambulance, we started driving, we just got out of town, and then somebody called and said, no, she should fly. Which actually ended up being a big blessing, because at the time when they were going to lower her up in the ambulance, she just wanted to see her kids again. And they were going to come down. We called them, told them, Bethany, to bring them down, and they were rushing to get that done. But by the time she was going to leave, they hadn't been able to leave yet, and so she wasn't going to make it. They weren't going to make it to come down to see her, and so we left. But then again, someone called, some doctor decided, no, I want her to fly, and so we actually had to go back to the hospital, and we went to ICU and waited there for them to get the flight stuff together, which ended up working because then the kids showed up, and were able to see her and talk to her, and Andrea is still feeling pretty good at this point. She been feeling like she had been. The only part that was really disturbing is that they had to put a tube in her throat to keep her breathing during the surgery, and it damaged her throat, and so she talked. Well, she never regained her voice fully again. It was very light and squeaky, and Andrea didn't have a squeaky voice. She had kind of a deep voice, and so it was a little traumatizing, I think, to hear her that way. But the kids all got to talk to her, and of course we told them everything's going to be okay and all that stuff. And so then we fly down to Denver, and it's a half-hour trip from the airport to the hospital, and they check us in there, and we talked to a liver specialist. Actually, that very night, it was late. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and the liver specialist was, they're 24-hour shifts down there apparently. So he was there, and he visited with us, and he was very nice, and Cholera was his name, and he told us we would do some tests and this and that, and of course everything was hinging around the fact that she was pregnant, and there was limited things that they could do to find things out. So we were still waiting for pathology, because when the surgeon in Gillette, they took a biopsy of her liver right then and there because it looked funny. And so they were waiting for the results of that. And they had told us they'd get the preliminary results tomorrow. And I can't even remember what day of the week this was. It might have been a Friday. And then we'll get the preliminaries tomorrow, and then it'll take a couple days to get the full results in. And so, of course, tomorrow came and went, and we didn't hear anything. And then we were in the hospital the whole next day, and it came and went, and we didn't hear anything. And and I was sleeping there in a chair inside the room, so I was just staying there with her. They were very accommodating and brought me sheets and pillows and stuff, and it was nice to be able to be with her. Got a lot of good talking done. That was nice. She was generally fine at that point. She was still talking really squeaky, but she was generally doing okay. She was in good spirits and she was talking well. The next day comes, and we should have had the final results by then, but the liver doctor specialist talked to the pathologist in Gillette, and the pathologist said that he's not really sure what he's going on, what he's looking at. He said he wasn't very experienced at reading them, I guess, and so he says they were not really sure what to make of these results. They didn't know what it was. And so at that point, the liver specialist in Denver said, why don't you just ship us all the slides? And so next day comes, and the slides didn't come. So it was a lot of waiting. Eventually the slides did come, and they did some tests, and they said that there were some skin cells from her liver on the gallbladder, and they thought that was strange, and this and that. And so they wanted to schedule a MRI, and so they did an MRI just of her abdomen there where she was having the pain, and they didn't see, the MRI came back and they didn't see anything on the MRI that was bad. We were going to do it with contrast, they said, which is not good for the baby, but the baby would probably still be fine since it was already fully developed at that point. And everybody recommended that's what we do, and so we did that. And they didn't see anything. They didn't see any tumors or anything. So they didn't really know what was going on. They said the liver was in bad shape, but they didn't see anything wrong with it. So I think the next day after that, the liver doctor said finally that they got some results back, and it was cancer. There was cancer cells there, and they were thinking they didn't know where the tumor was or where the primary cancer site was at. And I think this was on a Friday, and they were going to say, well, we need to schedule a CAT scan to find out where the primary is and to find out what stage the cancer was at. But there was nobody there that could do it because it was going to be the weekend, and so we couldn't get that done until Monday. So basically we were just waiting until then. Meanwhile, towards the evening, I think it was that Friday, my days might be off. You guys probably know better than I do based on the live streams, and I haven't gone back and looked at any of those because it's too hard. But we were just laying there talking, and she said, "Oh no, it just had something gush out," and we were trying to figure out what it was, and I thought maybe it was urine, but the fear was that it was amniotic fluid, and they had come in several times, the OB people, and checked the heartbeat and stuff, and so they scrambled to find somebody who could come in and do an ultrasound, and they came in, and there was no heartbeat, and it was her water that broke, and it was just not that much. So at that point, she had to get ready to deliver a baby, so she was going to be going into labor. So we had to get transferred from that part of the hospital to the OB part of the hospital, and that's when things kind of started to go downhill real bad, because obviously she's in a lot of pain from being in labor. They said it wasn't as bad, I guess, as normally would be, but still pretty bad. It's pretty much labor. And so we were there for a night, and was trying to sleep, and it was a lot of waiting time and getting up and down. She was in a lot of pain, but it was hard to tell what was the pain from her standard pain and what was the pain from the birth stuff, labor. And they had her on lots of pain medication at that point. And so she eventually delivered Cyrus. yeah, so then they were waiting for the placenta to come out, and we kept waiting for hours, and next morning came and it wasn't there. I was pretty drained and hurt and scared. I had been on a low dose of adrenaline for days and days, and so I went for a walk and to get away, and on the way back I ran into a whole group of doctors that were all talking, and they were all talking in a way that this is a serious way, you know, like they were all discussing what should we do and this and that, and I knew right away that it must have been talking about Andrea. And I heard one of the doctors talk about how they needed to do I don't know, DNC or something to suck the placenta out, I guess. But the guy said that if they put her under general anesthesia, he says, I give it greater than a 50% chance that she never comes out of it. And so, and I was just there listening, and I was, of course, losing my stuff, and I just kind of sat there on the floor, and one of the nurses recognized me and says, that's the dad, that's the dad. And so they, of course, invited me over at that point, and were apologizing for being so blunt at the time, but they're trying to figure out what to do. At this point, they still need to do the CAT scan. But pretty much that Friday, they had tested her, did a lot of blood. We did blood work every day. And so they were looking at her liver function and her kidney function, and she still had some of that. Her kidney function was fine on Monday, and by the evening of Friday, her kidney function was pretty much gone, and her liver function was pretty much gone. So they transferred us to ICU, and I have some footage when the doctor told us, but I don't know if I'm going to put it in or not. I don't know if I will. It's tough footage for me to look at. I'm sure it's tough for other people to look at. Andrea's kind of out of it, and then a doctor comes in. Basically, we had seen lots of doctors, and some other doctor we had never seen came in, I think, just to level with us when nobody else really was. And he basically said he's only seen this type of thing one other time in his life. Just the aggressiveness of this cancer. I think he said he's been doing it, he's in oncology for 21 years or something like that, and he's never seen quite like this before. He says her renal function or her kidney function was okay on Monday, and it's shut down on Friday. And he was certain because of that it was the biliary duct cancer. But anyways, that's what he said. That's what it is, and you don't need to get a CAT scan because that's what it is. And just based on how you've been going, you probably don't have 24 hours to live. And he told us all this, and he left. And then Andrea was like, well, she was just acting normal, and I said, what are we going to do? And she said, well, I guess we'll wait for the CAT scan on Monday. And I said, Andrea, he said, you're going to die. And he said, what? I didn't hear that. Bring him back in here. I didn't hear him say that. And of course, she's in and out of it. Although she was awake the whole time, she wasn't quite with it. And so then he had to come back and tell her again. And she was sure she was going to just go home and take herbs. And get better. And then when she finally accepted that she's going to die, she said, I want to go home. And they did not want us to go home. They were saying all over what was going to, she was just going to burst out bleeding like crazy, and it's going to scar all of her kids and her family. And Andrea was adamant to go home. And, she knew they couldn't keep her no matter what. So she kept saying, I'm going home, I'm going home. And so we had to pull all kinds of strings and had to pay a flight team because it was a Sunday, I guess. No, that's what it was. It was a Sunday that this happened. So I lose track of my time, but there was no flight people. There was no dispatch people on a Sunday, and so the only way they would come is if you paid by a credit card, and a good friend of ours paid that, and So that's when the videos take over, and we were going to have home health people that we know that are customers and good friends of mine. Actually, my business is in business partially because the owner of the home health place, Sharon Canode, who started it, knew the whole town, and when I was working for her, she told everybody about me. And that's where a lot of my business I could trace back to her. Anyways, they were going to do everything for free for us, and the nurse, the home health nurse, was always been super nice to us in the past when we needed Rogue M shots after the babies were born. She would come do them, and she would pay for them. I didn't realize till later, I don't know how that stuff works, but she was paying for the shots out of her own pocket and then coming and giving them to Andrea, and was never going to say anything about it. She's one of the nicest people in the world, and so she was going to come over. And I guess there was some mix-up because the hospital told her that she was on 6 liters of oxygen, which she wasn't. She was on 4 or 3, and that's all that she needed, or something like that. And I'm not really sure what happened, but because of the miscommunication the main thing she needed was pain medication because she was in a lot of pain, and the pain meds only lasted for 15 minutes before she would wear off, and she'd have to get something out and get another one. And so we flew the whole way there, and they were giving her the medicine in the plane, and then we landed, and then when we were going to go home, which is 30 miles from here, and that's when they said, well, we don't have any pain meds, and they couldn't give us any pain meds. And they said our only chance was to maybe go to the hospital, ER, and get them to maybe give us some pain meds. And we went there, and the people it was late at night, and the people at the plane who flew us said, nobody's going to come out here in the middle of the night. You're not going to be able to get to see a doctor. You're going to have to get admitted, and this and that. And the doctor we talked to was super nice and said that they'd meet us in the ambulance bay, and she would see her right in the ambulance bay in the ambulance. And the guy said the hospital, the plane ER or paramedics said, that's not going to happen. I've never seen that happen. And anyways, it did happen, and the lady came out and said, and they said, well, they can't give you drugs. They're not going to give you any pain meds. It's not going to happen. And the lady says, we're going to send you home with a pain pump and some pain meds. We're going to give it all. We're going to make it happen. And she's signing papers and making things happen. And that was awesome. I know she was breaking rules, but eventually a supervisor came in and put the kibosh on that and said, no, that's not going to happen, and so we can't do that. And so it was going to be either go home without pain meds or get checked in across the street at a hospice place, that close to home place that you saw in the video. And so that's what we did. And we went over there. Meanwhile, in the ambulance right there, that doctor gave her some pain meds right then and there. And they had been giving her, I can't remember now the dosage, but they had given her a certain dosage, and they gave her like a double dose. And the paramedics from the plane said, boy, that she felt that one. You could see that that one really hit her, and something, I don't know, her eyes rolled back or what happened, but when they gave her that last real big dose, that's pretty much when she went into, I guess, a coma or something. She went, and she never woke up again after that. So we transferred her over there. This was late at night, and I got some sleep on a couch and woke up the next morning. And, we talked for quite a while that evening, and she was out of it. But if I shook her, like if someone was sleeping, they were asleep, and you shook them, they would snap up and they'd, hi. They'd wake up, and that's what would happen with her. She'd be totally out of it, and then I would shake her and say, Andrea, Andrea, and she'd wake up, and she'd be with it. But it would only be for like a second, and then she would be back down again. And then right after that, I could shake her again, Andrea, Andrea, and she'd wake up, what? And then she would be back down again. And we did that a few times, and at one point I shook her and said, say hi to your kids. She goes, and she said, hi. And then she went back out again. And you can see on one of the videos that she was kind of talking with her, kind of mumbling, but with her mouth closed, and everybody says pretty sure that she was hearing us and was trying to talk to us. I wish I knew what she was saying. But she did get to say hi to the kids at least. And then Asher and Judah and several of the other kids slept in the room there with her. I didn't want to. It was so hard. And so I slept in a couch for a little while. And that's when we woke up the next morning. And she had been breathing very labored. And then I had stopped and she was just breathing fairly normal. And then after, I don't know, an hour or so, she stopped breathing. And that was the end. So I'm sure there's other questions you guys had that I don't remember right now. That's pretty much how it all happened. She did get to say something to the kids, and the kids all got to say goodbye to her and to talk to her, and I'm sure she could hear. So that's all good, and that's pretty much how things happened. I wish things hadn't happened the way they did, and I'm sure everybody has different opinions about what we could have done, but everything happened the way it could happen. It couldn't happen any other way. So that's just how it was. I do think in retrospect it was probably the surgery of the gallbladder that probably spread the cancer everywhere else. It wasn't after she died. It was like a week after she died that the doctor, the liver specialist, called us back and said, "Did anybody talk to you about the final pathology results?" And I said no, and he says, "Well, it turned out it was breast cancer. There was breast cancer cells on the liver and on the gallbladder," and which of course was a big surprise. As I said, it's kind of breast cancer that doesn't show up on a mammogram and doesn't really have any symptoms. She had swollen lymph nodes, as you guys might have seen on some of the videos, early videos, that her lymph nodes were swollen. Apparently that's one of the ways it can manifest itself. The other is discoloration, but she didn't have any of that at all. And I think it's probably because she was breastfeeding. And actually, it's probably the breastfeeding that my guess, probably slowed things down as much as they did. And after we went down to Denver, she was no longer breastfeeding, and things rapidly developed from there. And that's just my own personal opinion. I don't know how accurate it is, but well, that's pretty much it. I don't know how to end something like that, but I guess we'll continue on with the rest of the vlog.